Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Michael. I have two questions. The first one is after the General Conference, after the decision has been made, what's going to happen to the churches that already have in place women ministers and elders, so to speak? Then my second question is it possible for the legal system here to overturn the decision that will come about in the conference?
The second one I can answer for you. The legal system in the United States cannot, because this is a world church, and right now we have separation of church and state. The legal system couldn't do anything because it's a world church coming together. So they have no jurisdiction over our African brothers and things like that. So
your first question is, if it passes, what's going to happen with the women that are already ministers? Is that what? Okay. Well, I think it goes back to the potential. Of course, I don't know the future exactly, but I think if we look at it from the perspective of where the church may be going with this, and that is, my heart tells me, of course can't trust that all the time, but it says that this probably won't go through, but if there is an interest of it, it may be that divisions will choose, and maybe even conferences choose who's going to be ordained or not, and depending on what they do. For example, there are many churches, there's many conferences in North America, and right now, if you'll notice, there are many churches that adopt the principle of utilizing women as elders in the church. I myself personally I'm not convinced that that's a biblical base. And so I think there are churches out there that are taking precedence, and conferences are giving them some authorities to do these things. So it wouldn't be surprising to me. I still believe in my church, don't get me wrong. I still trust in my church. But it's very possible that it could be that there will be certain divisions or churches that will, in conference that will decide what's ordained and what's not ordained.
Okay, for the first question, there are a number of things to consider. One of the things that we need to make a distinction between is that there's really two different, biblically there's not. If you look at the reasons why those who are taking a biblical stand are saying no to women's ordination, they're very biblical texts about pastoral leadership, elder leadership in the church. But the way that our church is functioning right now is that women can be commissioned as pastors or elders in the local congregations, but not ordained. So the question at GC is a question of ordination. So if the GC votes no to women's ordination, then it really doesn't, in my view, I may be wrong, but it really doesn't impact the women who are already pastors or elders in local churches, because they're doing so not as, they're not ordained in those positions, but they are serving in those positions. Somehow we've disconnected. In my view, if a person biblically can be a pastor, then they should be ordained. But if a person cannot be ordained as a pastor, then we should not have the practice of letting people serve as a pastor who cannot be ordained as a pastor, or serve as an elder, but they cannot be ordained as an elder. So that's another issue that I don't think is on, the vote that comes out will be for women's ordination, but then we'll have to deal with the issue of, women pastors and elders in the local churches. I think there's two different things there.
now, just to finish that up, I don't know how many of you guys know Pastor Dwayne Turner?
Yes, sir.
Amen, amen. I was on the phone with that brother almost 2 hours yesterday, and he was still ready to tell me more. He is a pastor that is really always has his ear to the ground and is always researching things and studying things. He talked about this, and he said what's going to happen, and it's going to have to come up after the vote. If the GC votes down women's ordination, he said the GC is going to have to stand strong, and they're going to have to take care of all these things that have been building up to this point, and it will be time to remove those women as pastors and elders. Because like I said, if they can't be ordained into that position, why keep them in that position? They shouldn't be there. Ordination is only a fraction of it. Serving, I can serve all day long, not be ordained, and still do the same thing, but it doesn't really matter. So you really need to work to remove them. So the GC needs to put some teeth behind this if it is voted that way, to clear it up once and for all, or there's still going to be confusion. There's still going to continue to be confusion in the church, and that's what we're trying to get away from. Jesus has come very soon, and what also we understand is we know the shaking is going on, and there will be things that will help be a catalyst to advance this shaking, because Jesus has a plan and he's coming really soon, and he's got to count on the church to work in unity to get the work done. Right now, the way the church is, here's my belief, is why the people aren't coming in droves right now in the United States, because they cannot. God cannot trust our churches to bring them in droves. The thing is, if they come in here to Houston International, I preach one thing from the pulpit. They can go across town and hear something totally different. Now, what happens if they do that and they're fresh into the faith, they're going to say, well, I heard this here and that over there. This church, they're crazy. I'm out of here. Well, the thing is, God knows that many people, there's only one crack at bringing them into the church. So right now, he can't bring them into the church in the way he wants to in North America. But let me show you the difference. North America last year, 39,000 baptisms. Everybody say, hey, that's... Okay, let me give you an example of South America last year. 229,000 baptisms. Because God can trust the church in South America and Africa, for the most part, as well, to bring people in. Those are our two fastest growing divisions, okay? But God can trust bringing them in because they're not divided theologically. But right now, we're divided theologically in North America, and he can't bring them in droves. So he's got to make a change here in North America so the people that he wants in this church can come in. Amen? Okay. Question, sister?
Would you explain to us, in view of the fact that you were saying, Pastor, that these women are commissioned and not ordained, what is the difference in their roles? A commissioned pastor as opposed to an ordained pastor. What do they do differently?
Well, let me share. I'm not an ordained pastor. Eventually, Lord willing, I will be an ordained pastor. The way our system works is that a pastor enters into ministry, and after serving for a while and having the church view that ministry, having the conference leadership view that ministry, and other pastors in the area view that ministry, when you are ordained, it's as if the world church, as if the brethren say, we recognize that God has called this individual to ministry. And so those who aren't ordained, there is a time period, a kind of a testing period, so to speak, where where their ministry can be seen, and others can come to the collective decision that truly God has called this person. Now, this is what to me does not make sense whatsoever, because when you enter into a ministry, that time of not being ordained is really kind of your proving time, that testing time. And so if a person enters into ministry but can never be ordained, it just doesn't make sense to me why you even have that process. But the reason we have it is because there are people pushing for women in the roles of pastor and elder, and so you've got to have some type of way to do that, because up till now, women cannot be ordained as pastors. Yeah, we've already voted that twice in General Conference.
But in terms of the roles, I mean, what are they not, can they marry people? Can they baptize people? Can they, what can they do or cannot do as opposed to being ordained?
Simply put, commissioning is in a local environment. So, for example, they wouldn't, commission pastor or commission would not be recognized in the world capacity to officiate in services such as marriage, baptisms, and so forth.
But in the local community?
Local. It would be local. So, for example, I'm an ordained pastor, and before I was ordained, we can say it was a commissioned position in that my responsibilities tailored only to the capacity of my district. So I could not marry technically out of state or in another district or officiate in other services, because my proving ground was my local district, which at the time may have been 4 churches or 2 churches, etc. So commissioning is recognizing the individual that they have the ability to pastor and they have the capacities to pastor. But the ordination is a whole different thing. It's that next step where it's recognized in the world division, where, if as an ordained pastor, I can go to, in other words, I have my credential. I can go anywhere in the world and show them my credential, and I can preach, I can teach, I can officiate in any of the services or the offices of any of the churches in the world. So prior to that, it's local.
Thank you.
Now, unfortunately, there's one thing that's going on that I stand and oppose is beyond commission. They have some within our division, some conferences have ordained women. When the World Church has said, no, wait till we vote on it, hold off on all this, but there are some that preemptively went ahead of that, and to me, I'm just going to call it what it is. It's open rebellion. But once again, the Lord's going to deal with this, and that's what we got to remember. This is God's church. There are, and as much bad is going on in the church and bad people in the church, do not lose faith in your church, because there's a lot of good men. Remember